Redfall was the latest Xbox exclusive game that had a decent amount of hype built around it. It was first announced during the Xbox and Bethesda E3 2021 showcase, and then on May 12th of 2022, the game was announced to be delayed until the first half of 2023. And then of course it released on May 2nd of 2023. But with its release, a lot of people are wondering why wasn't this game delayed again? On release day, you can see all the negative reviews on Metacritic and Steam, with Metacritic having a score of 59 and Steam reviews being mostly negative, with about 30% of the reviews being positive. Whether you read reviews or not before buying a game, I feel we can all agree that a good game would not have scores like that. Now, is Redfall bad? Well, lucky for you, I actually played it. All of it. I beat this game. I wanted to review this game as soon as possible, but felt it would be best if I had the whole game complete to tell you everything I can about the game. So be warned, this video will have spoilers in it, and I don't even know where to begin with it. Let's begin with the story, I guess. You get to play as one of 4 different characters, with each character having 2 special abilities and an ultimate. And whatever character you pick, you get stuck hearing the same lines throughout the entire game. So choose wisely. In my playthrough, I decided to play as Devinder Crowsley, or Dev, and his abilities and ultimates revolved around electrocuting enemies and teleporting, which was an okay kit. I'll say the ultimate ability was very powerful towards the endgame, as it basically was a free one-hit kill on a handful of vampires. But back to the story. Your character is trapped inside Redfall, Massachusetts, as he gets attacked by a legion of vampires after a failed science experiment. Going through the game, the story I feel is a little bland and dull. You get left with so many unanswered questions like, why are these random humans worshiping these vampires? Where did they get all these guns? Even if the town is isolated, why is there no government intervention with the vampires? And why the hell is there just a giant frozen wave in this game? I will admit I didn't find the story too fun, and the questions I may have were probably answered and I just missed it. But the thing that's more important than story in a game like this is the gameplay as a whole. Is it fun, engaging, memorable? And the answer to all those questions is no, and no. Early on in this game, you establish your home base in Redfall as the fire station and meet all these other survivors who don't seem to do anything. Literally, they do nothing. A few of them play a bigger role per se, but they all feel so unalive and inanimate. They're not programmed to do anything or go anywhere. Some of them you can end up doing side missions for them, but the rewards for those side missions are basically non-existent besides XP that levels you up. And speaking of not getting any items, I'll get into loot and items as a whole in a bit. That's a whole topic I can ramble on for a couple minutes, so get ready. Now, in the main base, you can also buy new guns, which all suck. In my 17-hour playthrough, I never bought a single gun. You can refill ammo, which is very expensive, and buy first aid, which is also very expensive. But you can get money for scrapping guns and picking up random items in the open world, so you always have some money available. And then, of course, lastly, you pick which main story mission you want to do next in the hub. And whenever you do pick a main story mission, you get to listen to your character talk about what's happening with a still image moving. And what the hell is this? Personally, I view this type of animation, if you can even call it that, I view it as very lazy. I know other games have done it, and I'm not really a fan of it. Maybe making cutscenes and animations for all 4 characters was too much work for how many cutscenes there could be, but it would still make the experience a little bit better. Okay, let's talk about a big thing in this game, and that's the open world, which is very, very boring. The game is advertised as an open world first-person shooter, and yeah, it's technically open world, it's just empty. So many houses look exactly the same, so many doors are not able to be opened, and I don't feel this sense of adventure and curiosity of what lies ahead compared to a game like Elden Ring or even Horizon. Throughout the entire world, you encounter human enemies who worship the vampires for some reason, and then of course you encounter vampires. And this is where some of the worst part of the game comes in. The AI in this game is just so stupid. You start fighting a handful of enemies, and sometimes they don't even shoot you, or they literally just walk right by you. Their movement is so predictable and they die so fast. It's baffling to me how the enemies can be more dumb in this game compared to Deathloop, which had the worst AI I've ever seen until this game. Those are just the human enemies I'm talking about. The vampires are a little bit better, but they can get tedious to fight, and some of them are just straight up unfair in my opinion. You have your basic vampires that just walk at you and you shoot them until you can kill them with a stake or fire, but throughout the game you find mini boss-esque vampires that tend to have a special ability and do more damage. These did impose a nice challenge, but the only one I ever struggled with is the one that had the lifesteal ability. They would suck away your life so fast you barely had time to react before you died. And the game as a whole is pretty easy, and dying to these enemies has no consequences whatsoever, as you just respawn and lose a little bit of money. And on top of that, all the enemies you kill stay dead, which is nice, I'll say, in this game because the combat can get so tedious. Towards the end of the game, I was avoiding fighting as the reward was never worth it. Enemies rarely dropped anything anything but ammo, and with not a lot of ways to regain health and only having 5 medkits, I wouldn't want to waste them on some unneeded fight. And when enemies did drop guns, the odds of you taking the guns were slim to none. I used a handful of guns throughout the entire game, as they just did the job. Every weapon can have its own little passive abilities to buff it, yes, but you don't really notice them at all. And on top of that, the variety in weapons is abysmal. The game has 7 weapons total, so you'll use everything pretty fast. The enemies in this game in the open world aspect were just very disappointing. I found myself in the beginning enjoying it a little bit, but as time went on, it just got so tedious and not fun at all. Now that's the world, the enemies, the loot, all that crap, but there's still more into this game, and at first these next few things I found were pretty fun, but towards the end of the game, just like everything else, it was just so tedious and not fun to do. And these are the safe houses and the vampire nest. Let's go over the safe houses first. Redfall is divided up into neighborhoods, with each neighborhood house and a safe house you need to take control of. To take control of it, you need to do 2 missions, with the first mission being something simple like taking down some effigies or killing some vampire blood trees, and then the second mission has you take down a boss vampire. And at first I thought they were pretty fun, but all of the missions for these safe houses kind of feel the same, and something the game doesn't tell you is that you need to do all these safe houses regardless, as the only way to fight the Alluminn, the first major boss, is to have 3 skulls of safe house bosses. So if you skip them, you're gonna have to do some grinding. But I'll say, if you do end up playing this game, you should do the safe houses, as they unlock fast travel, and fast travel is very important. You can also do fast travel with historic monuments, but the safe houses were the most easy way to fast travel. They kind of were right in the middle of every neighborhood, so it was easy to access anything. Next, let's talk about the vampire nest. These things spawn randomly on the map and buff all the vampires in the zone. You go through a small little room and destroy a vampire heart inside the nest and collect a lot of loot. At first, this was the best part of the game. Got me some much needed loot and was a nice change of pace to the slogfest of a story and boring empty open world. But after a little bit, the nest spawn just kept coming and it was more of a chore to even think about doing them. Later in the game, I had all the loot I needed and plenty of money to buy any ammo or health pack, so I felt no need to do them. Like most things in the game, by the end of it, I just couldn't be bothered to even attempt to do these anymore. But hey, the first 3 hours of the game, they're okay. Same old vampires, just better loot. That's also really the entire game. But also at the same time, it's only half the game, which I know sounds confusing, but hear me out. When I played Redfall, after about 8 hours or so, I was ready to call it quit. But I was also very determined to finish the game so I could have the best review possible. And thank God I did, because the game got worse as time went on. Throughout the game, you're trying to find the boss vampire named the Alluminn, and you eventually have this not so epic fight against him, and it seems like the game would be over after that, or at least that's what I expected. It's probably a good thing it didn't end after that, but man, I was a little shocked the game had a whole new area, and a little disappointed, and nothing really new came out of that area. Nothing new stood out. After the Alluminn is taken down, you travel to Burial Point, which is basically the exact same thing as Redfall. Same stupid enemies, same safe house missions and bosses, same vampire nest, same crappy loot, same empty open world, just a different scenery. Burial Point area is a new story with a few new characters and new bosses at the end of the game, but it felt exactly the same as the previous area, and the small amount of charm that Redfall had is now long gone. At this point, you've probably tried all the weapons, have done all the safe houses and the nest, and have used all your abilities, so it was just a slugfest for me in this area. I'll say, just like in the first area, I did all the main story missions, safe houses, and side missions just because I wanted to, but nothing changed. The only major change in this area was the spawning of the Rook vampire, which was just a boss fight that spawns based off you killing special vampires and the random humans alerting people of presence, I think. The Rook spawns when this meter is full, and at first, it was a nice challenging fight. But the 10th time they spawn as the meter fills up pretty fast, it's just another tedious thing you need to worry about. And you need to kill it as fast travel is disabled with them on the map. I wish there was more to talk about with this second area in this review, but it's more or less the exact same thing as the first area, and that's just kind of boring. At the end of the day, Redfall is a buggy mess that has a slew of problems, and I have one question for it. How did this happen? Granted, the answer is probably just rushed by executives to get a new IP out ASAP, but this game just has so many problems. 30 FPS locked on a next-gen console, 60 FPS on PC. The story is boring and uninteresting, really. The cutscenes on top of that are lazy. The AIs are so stupid. There's a countless amount of bugs and glitches. I may not have talked about it, but it's present. Glitches and bugs are everywhere. One really annoying bug I had was where all the enemies' health bars would just disappear until I reset the game. And it happened on the final boss fight, where the vampires they spawned had a mysterious amount of health to me, and I'd have to restart the whole mission just to fix that one bug. Enemies also appear out of nowhere at times, which isn't a bug, it's just more so annoying. The world is empty and has no no loot. The hit markers in the game are horrendous. You drop so many frames while killing certain vampires. Sometimes my controller would randomly jerk in a different direction. And one major problem in this game is online only, even if you play single player, which is horrible. It's nice that the game has a co-op option, and I'm sure it's a somewhat decent experience with friends, but why the hell do I need to make up a Bethesda account and stay connected to the internet when I'm just trying to play the game alone? It makes no sense. But I guess you could say the absolute worst thing in this game is the achievements give you 17 gamer score. Who the hell came up with that idea? But I will say it does have a few positives around it. Not many, but a few. Despite not having a wide variety of guns, the guns still seem rather smooth, and when the game is running well, the gunplay is a little satisfying, mostly with shotguns and machine guns. And I guess one more positive thing about the game is the accessibility options it has. You can enable text-to-speech on the menus if you desire, which I accidentally did and regretted, but if someone needs that type of option to improve their game, it's nice that it's there. I will say though, the quality is not good on that at all, and hopefully it's something that they can fix. And with all that said, should you buy this game? Hell no. If you have Game Pass, I'll say give it a shot since it's free there, but in no way, shape, or form is this game worth $70 or let alone $40. Just because it's on Game Pass doesn't give it an excuse to be as bad and as buggy as it is. I will say it has some potential to be a decent game, like maybe a 7 out of 10, but with its current state, the best I could give it is a 4 out of 10, and that's being very generous. It makes me really sad also because I was very excited to try this game out. But this buggy mess of a game from a well-respected studio like Arcane is simply just unacceptable, and all the negative feedback this game has received is well justified. I swear, 50% of highly anticipated first-party games always have way too many problems to justify the purchase, and this game is that. It's a mess, and I hope it does get some fixes so future players don't have to experience the boring, empty world of Redfall like I did. Thanks for watching this honest review on Redfall. Like and subscribe if you liked the video, I guess. It would really help out a lot. And comment down below if you liked Redfall or you disliked it, you hate looking at it, whatever comments you have, you can leave them down below. And a huge shout out to the people on Patreon who support me still. I appreciate the support there so much, and you have no idea how much I do appreciate it. But yeah, that's all, and I'll see you next time.